You are listening to the Novel Writing Podcast, episode 232. I'm your host, Colleen Mitchell. Grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Today, I want to give adverbs a break. They get a lot of hate on the grounds of being used as unnecessary modification, rather than authors just choosing stronger verbs, but adverbs are not the enemy. Sometimes, adverbs are the best choices. Like all writing rules, the advice to avoid adverbs is not universal. The reason it's regurgitated so much is because newer writers tend to rely on adverbs when better verb choices exist. Let's go back to English class. What is an adverb? According to Merriam-Webster, a word belonging to one of the major form classes in any of numerous languages, typically serving as a modifier of a verb, an adjective, another adverb, a preposition, a phrase, a clause, or a sentence, expressing some relation of manner or quality, place, time, degree, number, cause, opposition, affirmation, or denial, and in English, also serving to connect and to express comment on clause content. Adverbs are words that usually modify, that is, they limit or restrict the meaning of verbs. They may also modify adjectives, other adverbs, phrases, or even entire sentences. An adverb answers the question of when, where, how much, how long, or how often. Most adverbs are formed by adding ly to an adjective. If the adjective already ends in y, the y usually changes to I. There are, however, many common adverbs that do not end in ly, such as again, also, just, never, often, soon, today, to, very, and well. There are a few different kinds of adverbs. The words when, where, why, and how are all called interrogative adverbs when they begin a question. The relative adverbs, where, when, and why, how is sometimes included as well, introduce subordinate clauses, which are also called dependent clauses, which are clauses that do not form simple sentences by themselves. When an adverb modifies a whole sentence or clause, it's called a sentence adverb. Words such as fortunately, frankly, hopefully, and luckily are all generally used as sentence adverbs and usually express the speaker's feelings about the content of the sentence. Such adverbs normally come at the beginning of a sentence, but may also come in the middle or at the end. So, English lesson over. If that was a lot, you can go back and listen to it again, or just look up this definition on Merriam-Webster because that's where I got it from. But as you just heard, adverbs cover far more than the oft-maligned modifiers ending in ly. And that is typically what writing advice is focusing on, is getting rid of those adverbs ending in ly. What happens with newer writers especially is using adverbs to tell the reader what emotion the character is experiencing through dialogue tags, or to describe verbs for which stronger verb choices exist. But adverbs are a legitimate part of speech, and just because a word ends in ly doesn't mean you should immediately chop it. Sometimes adverbs are the correct choice to convey what's going on, whether that's in dialogue tags, action tags, or the narrative prose itself. When editors and experienced writers say cut adverbs, that doesn't mean to literally cut every single adverb. And yes, I used an adverb here with literally. What it means is to ask whether the adverb is doing the right job, and if it's not, to choose a stronger verb or to show emotion through action or context. For more on that, listen to episode 126 on the physicalities of emotion. Saying to cut adverbs across the board means painting all adverbs as weak, but adverbs exist for a reason, and that reason is to modify other words so that meaning is clearly expressed. Just because it's easy to misuse adverbs as a newer or even established writer isn't a reason to axe them all. If you're a newer writer worried about misusing adverbs, remember that the first draft is supposed to be garbage. That will include using adverbs where stronger verbs will be inserted during rewrites. Removing an adverb just because it's an adverb can make a sentence less precise rather than more precise, and it also impacts how efficient the writing is. For example, consider this sentence. She carefully picked up the glass. This sentence requires the adverb to describe how the glass is picked up without turning it into a mess of excessive showing. Context would explain why the glass had to be picked up carefully, but the word carefully produces a reader image that picked up by itself does not. Removing too many adverbs creates a situation where writers end up showing more than they should, which goes hand in hand with the similar bad advice to show not tell. And please listen to episode 212 on how that so-called rule has turned into a caricature of what it's actually supposed to mean. Regardless, context is key. If the context of the sentence or scene means an adverb would work better than a strong verb, use the adverb. And if the context says the opposite, do the opposite. Axing adverbs in dialogue tags can do you a disservice if the emotion of the dialogue isn't apparent from the context. So again, context is key. I sometimes choose to use the adverb softly as a dialogue tag modifier because the impact of said softly, to me, carries a different quality than using whispered or breathed, especially considering context of the dialogue. This offers a tangent into yet another bit of terrible advice, which is the idea that said is dead. Said is the most vanilla dialogue tag because it's invisible, unless you use it for every single piece of dialogue, and sometimes using the tag said softly hits better than what might be considered a stronger verb. I like adverbs, and the condition is that I like them when they're used correctly, sparingly, and where they'll make the most impact. But I also know that it's hard to master them, especially in first drafts, and when your craft tool belt isn't as robust as it will be down the road. Ultimately, don't fear using adverbs. If using those adverbs helps you get the story onto the page, use them, and leave trimming for rewrites and edits. That is it for today's episode. For the script of this episode, check out the Substack link in the description. They're free to access, but if you'd like to support the podcast and watch unedited interview videos, please consider subscribing. Thanks for joining me, and remember, that first draft is supposed to be garbage. Do you need help getting your novel to the next level? I offer one-on-one book coaching for fiction writers, whether you're outlining, rewriting, or preparing to self-publish. Learn more using the links in this episode's description.